I never imagined that life at 72 would take such an unusual turn. I had always envisioned my senior years to be calm and tranquil, with nothing to do but reflect on the past and appreciate the simplicity of life. But the truth was far different. I was simply an ordinary widow, left alone in a peaceful house. When Henry died, the home that had once been full of laughter and discussion now resonated silently. More time than I knew what to do with gathered about me like a dense cloud. The days seemed endless. People assured me I'd get used to the loneliness and the pain. It was expected that the quiet would fade with time. Yet, as the years unfolded, it only intensified, pressing down like an invisible burden on my chest. That's when Max came into my life. A dog. It's a source of solace, my partner. I never anticipated that Max would evolve into something far beyond my imagination. Be sure to subscribe to my channel so I can continue sharing captivating and authentic stories like this one. Also, don't forget to watch this video all the way through and give it a thumbs up, as the narrative promises to be quite enjoyable. Please click the like button to show your support. It all started so simply. Sophia, my daughter, had been suggesting for a while that I should get a dog. "It'll keep you company, Mom," she said. She remarked with a knowing smile, and I understood her concern for me. Little did she know, I was grappling with a loneliness that no creature could ever fill. Yet, as mothers often do, I acquiesced to her wishes and visited the shelter, where I found Max, a beautiful mongrel with wide, soulful eyes. Initially, he was just a dog, a gentle companion who followed me around the house, wagging his tail at every glance. He wasn't particularly remarkable at first, but like many pets, he transformed into something more. He possessed an extraordinary ability to sense my emotions, often more acutely than anyone else. When I sat on the couch, lost in thoughts of Henry, Max would leap up beside me, resting his head on my lap and gazing into my eyes with his deep brown gaze. The warmth of his fur brought a lightness to my mood, a comfort that was hard to describe. It was reassuring to say the least, but I knew it was only temporary. Something changed over time. Max was no longer just a dog. It began off, little and nearly undetectable at first. I noticed that he started following me around. He would sit by the entrance when I walked to the kitchen or by my feet when I sat down to eat dinner. However, things quickly became very serious. I started waking up every morning. Max cuddled up next to me on the side of the bed, taking over the space where Henry had slept. Didn't mind it at all. It provided the consolation I had been missing since Henry's death. Even amid the silence of the night, it felt comforting to have someone at my side, even if it was only a dog. But it wasn't simply his friendliness that began to influence me. It was his presence, his ever-watchful gaze. It was unusual for a dog to maintain such close watch on its owner. Max began studying me with an intensity I had never seen before. It wasn't only that he was close, he seemed to be waiting for something, observing my every action, and that was the moment I recognized he seemed to grasp my thoughts. It marked the anniversary of Henry's passing. I found myself seated alone on the couch. Reflecting on our many years together, it had been a challenging day filled with memories and sorrow, with Max, as always, by my side. But this time, he did something unusual. Instead of resting calmly at my feet, as he always did, he leaped onto the couch beside me and placed his head on my lap. His eyes, focused on mine, were filled with a tenderness I couldn't quite describe. At that moment, something changed. He seemed to understand the depth of my anguish. He understood. "You're a great companion, my friend." I spoke softly, my fingers gently gliding over his velvety ears, and in that moment I sensed a slight easing of my sadness. It was remarkable how much solace his mere presence provided, and as I gazed at him, it dawned on me that he understands me more deeply than anyone else. It was not the typical way a dog looks at its owner. It was deeper and more intimate. There was something human in his eyes, unsettling, yet oddly relaxing. Over the course of many weeks, Max and I developed a relationship. I awoke every morning to find him snuggled up next to me, and at night he stayed near, following me from room to room, observing me with his deep, knowing eyes. His alertness increased, and it seemed like he was always on the watch for something. As I wandered about the house, his gaze remained attentive. At first, I believed it was just my imagination, but as I saw more, I realized it wasn't your standard pet-owner dynamic. Interaction felt different. There was one night that particularly resonated with me, highlighting the transformation I had undergone. It was late, the house enveloped in silence, and I had just savored a cup of tea. As I made my way to my bedroom, Max emerged behind me, a familiar presence. Yet this time, rather than settling at the foot of the bed, he chose an unexpected spot, right beside me. His large, dark eyes met mine, and an unfamiliar flutter stirred within my chest. "Max, what are you doing?" I was taken aback by the unexpected intimacy. I asked. I tried to ease the intense tightness I was experiencing, yet he remained still. He just sat there, gazing at me intently. His look was strong, and it made my heart beat. My heart quickened, but I couldn't take my gaze away. It felt as if he was waiting for me to do something to acknowledge the shift in our relationship. I stretched out to pet him, and the instant my palm touched his fur, I felt something. It felt as if a current ran through me, bringing warmth and connection. It was the type of emotion I hadn't had in years, since Henry the Revelation struck me hard. My relationship with Max had passed a boundary. What began as companionship had evolved into something deeper, which I could not entirely comprehend. I couldn't deny it anymore. Max was more than simply my pet. He was becoming my lifeline. Things grew weirder after. That night, Max grew increasingly connected to me. He began to follow me around, sitting close to me whenever I was nearby. He looked at me with the same intensity, his stare never leaving mine. It wasn't only that he was faithful. It seemed as if he was watching over me and expecting my every action, and as we sat together, his body rubbed up against me, making it seem more intimate than it should be. I couldn't understand it, but it was beginning to make me uneasy. I was filled with uncertainty, yet Max had become an inseparable part of my life. One night, as the moonlight filtered through the blinds, I turned over and was taken aback to find Max beside me, his face mere inches away, his breath brushing against my skin. Initially, I should have felt startled, but instead, an unusual tranquility washed over me. I extended my legs. I reached out to caress his fur, and he nestled closer to me. I ought to have been amazed. It should have seemed unsettling. Yet in that instant, I encountered a sensation I hadn't known in years. A profound peace. Deep down, I understood it wasn't natural. This was not the typical development of a healthy bond with a pet, but I couldn't deny the sense that Max had transformed into something more profound than I had initially planned to acknowledge. Telling myself that I was just lonely, and that it was normal to seek comfort wherever I could find it. After all, I was an elderly woman who had lost the love of her life. What was the harm in seeking consolation in a dog company? However, the sentiments persisted over time. In reality, they just became stronger. Max also to sense it. He was always by my side, waiting and watching. He followed me about like we were two parts of the same organism. Drawn together by something invisible, it seemed like we were becoming more than simply owners and pets. It was something outside the U.S. boundaries of camaraderie, something I couldn't articulate. I believe everything culminated one night. I had been restless and unable to sleep. Captivated by my increasing devotion to Max, I went downstairs thinking that a drink of water would help settle my worries when I returned to my bedroom. Max was already lying on my side of the bed. He didn't move when I approached. He simply gazed at me, his eyes serious and eager as if he had been anticipating me all along. I crawled into bed, my heart pounding, but once I was comfortable, Max came closer to me. His body brushed up against me in an unsettlingly personal way. It seemed as if the distinction between pet and owner had faded, revealing something deeper, something more disturbing had taken its place. My breath frozen in my throat, but I didn't move him away. I did not want to. Instead, I allowed him to remain in his warmth, filling the icy void in my heart. I should have felt ashamed, yet I didn't. A sense of ease enveloped me as I lay in bed with Max beside me. I hadn't experienced such peace since Henry's death. We lingered in this state for hours, two lonely souls finding solace in each other. However, as the days went by, the remorse and confusion that trailed me became inescapable. I had crossed a boundary, allowing this connection to grow deeper than it should have, yet I couldn't stop its advancement. My friend had filled a void that was extremely deep. I was oblivious to the truth. He had become my entire world, yet I understood, beneath the surface, that it was an unhealthy attachment. I had allowed my pain and loneliness to guide me towards seeking comfort from a dog instead of the people who truly cared for me, my family and friends. It was time to confront the truth and release this attachment before it consumed me entirely. Max was a devoted and loving dog, yet he wasn't the answer to my loneliness. He couldn't replace the void that Henry had left. So, I gradually began to distance myself. I started spending more time with Sophia and the grandchildren, reconnected with old acquaintances, and sought out activities I once enjoyed. Max remained by my side, of course, always by my side, yet I ensured to set boundaries. I reminded myself that he was merely a dog, not a true companion. Reflecting on it now, I realize how easy it is to allow loneliness to pull you under. Unusual pathways and establish bonds that no one else understands. But in the end, personal ties and the love and support of family and friends are what genuinely make a difference. Max will always be a particular part of my life, but I'm learning to accept the world outside of my quiet house once more. I feel at ease as I sit here with Max curled up at my feet, not the type of serenity that comes from avoiding loneliness with weird relationships, but the kind that comes from confronting my emotions and bonding with others who matter the most. In the end, it is the love we share with people that genuinely cures us, not the temporary solace of isolation or a dog's undying loyalty. As I matured and shifted my attention, I found myself dealing with increasingly complex emotions. The battle to move on from Henry's death was at times overpowering. I had spent so many years as his wife, so many years committed to our life together. But now I was alone, and it was evident that Max had served as a crutch to keep me from dealing with the deeper, more painful elements of my bereavement. I couldn't deny it anymore. This relationship had gone well beyond what was healthy, and while Max's affection was undeniable and his presence calming, it was not the type of company that would aid in my healing. It was only a momentary reprieve. A bandage over a wound that required more than simply consolation. It needed to be addressed and healed by the connections I used to rely on. Connections with people who cared about me, knew the real me, and could guide me through the emotional anguish I had repressed for so long. The remorse that accompanied this understanding was overwhelming. It felt as if I had compromised not just myself, but also Henry's memory. How could I allow a puppy to take the place of the love I enjoyed with my late husband? How had my loneliness clouded my judgment and led to such an unhealthy dependency? I was caught between the comfort Max offered and the urge to recreate the human ties that had always been the foundation of my existence. But gradually I came to comprehend I needed to reconnect with the people around me. The first step was to open up to Sophia. One afternoon while we sipped tea, I revealed the truth about how I had been feeling. How Max had been a source of emotional support, and how our connection had evolved into so much more than just a pet owner. "One, you don't have to go through this alone," Mom Sophia replied, listening to me with the sympathy that only a kid can provide. Her comments were precisely what I needed to hear. And while they didn't immediately settle the complex emotions swimming inside of me, they did give me hope. I hoped that I might begin to recover and that I would no longer have to live in solitude steeped in sadness. One of the most difficult decisions I had to make was to establish limits with Max. I had to convince myself every day that he was only a dog. He was my Max, but he was not a substitute for the love, care, and companionship I enjoyed with others. It took time, but I gradually distanced myself from the toxic emotional relationship I had developed. Max remained by my side, as he always had, but our bond began to evolve. I started to invest more time with Sophia, venturing out to meet friends, returning to church, and taking walks in the park. There, I often encountered neighbors who had faded into strangers over the years. Initially, it wasn't easy. Loneliness crept back in, and I felt the pull to retreat into my old habits, finding comfort in Max's warm, soothing presence. Yet, I chose to resist that temptation. I reassured myself that I was making the right choice, embarking on a journey of renewal, surrounding myself with those who could offer the support and affection I needed. As days turned into weeks, I slowly began to feel more connected to the world around me. I joined a book club at my local library, something I had always longed to do, but never found the time for. At first, it felt strange and foreign. The other women in the group chatted about their children's busy lives and families, leaving me feeling like an outsider, unsure of how to engage in the conversations. However, as the weeks went by, I started to appreciate our discussions. We shared stories, laughed over plot twists, and connected over characters we could all relate to. It felt as though I was rediscovering the art of relating to others and finding joy in shared experiences. Max remained a steadfast presence in my life, always there, unwavering in his loyalty, and I began to recognize him for what he truly was. A pet can provide companionship, yet it cannot substitute for human connection. I started to establish firm boundaries with him, no longer permitting him to share my bed, a comfort I had clung to during my darkest moments. Instead, he now slept in his own bed, nestled near my feet. This shift was challenging. There were nights when I lay awake, feeling the emptiness seep in, longing for the warmth of Max's presence beside me. However, I understood the necessity of this change. I had to reclaim the connections I once took for granted. I recognized that my loneliness had led me to an unexpected place, but I was beginning to learn how to navigate life anew. Once more, a significant change took place when I began to dedicate more time to my friends. I reached out to Ed Old. People I once knew well, who had drifted away as time passed, felt unfamiliar at first. After all, many of them had moved forward with their lives while I remained in the tranquil solitude of my home. Yet, their warm greetings brought a sense of comfort. Upon my return, we gradually rekindled old friendships. It felt as though I was finally stepping back into the world I had once known. I began to uncover a realization. While loneliness posed its challenges, I recognized that escaping it through unhealthy attachments was not the solution. The true remedy for loneliness lay in authentic human connection, the love and support that only friends and family can provide. After attempting to fill Henry's void for many years, I came to realize that no pet or companion could ever replace a family's love. Friendship is a bond forged between individuals who truly care for each other. As I stepped back into the world, I noticed myself becoming more engaged. I took more walks with Max. At the park, I found myself engaging in conversations with neighbors, even those I hadn't spoken to in years. I enjoyed coffee with Sophia and my friends, sharing laughter over old memories while creating new ones. I started volunteering at the local community center, helping others who, like me, had faced bereavement or hardship. In those moments of giving and connection, I felt truly alive again. Max stayed close to me, unwavering in his presence. Always a devoted comrade, He was no longer my sole source of consolation. Instead, he became a more positive element in my existence. I could finally enjoy his companionship without relying on him to fill the void within me. His love was genuine, uncomplicated, and unconditional, which I adored. Yet I realized it wasn't enough to heal the deeper aspects of myself. Looking back, I see how easy it is to fall into harmful routines while grappling with sadness and loneliness. I allowed my emotions to cloud my judgment and sought solace in a friend, even though I knew deep down that I needed to reconnect with those who truly loved me. Ultimately, I found my way back. I learned to open my heart to others, allowing them to fill the void that Max couldn't. In this process, I uncovered a tranquility I hadn't experienced in years. It wasn't the fleeting peace that comes from escaping loneliness, but rather a deeper sense of calm that arises from embracing my emotions. I came to understand that loss and loneliness are natural aspects of life, yet they do not define who I am. I feel at ease as I sit here. With Max curled up at my feet, I find a happiness that transcends mere avoidance of feelings or over-reliance on a pet. It's a joy rooted in facing my challenges head-on and in mending the connections that truly matter. I realize I am not alone. I have family, friends, and Max, each holding a special place in my heart. Ultimately, it is the love we share with others that heals us, not the fleeting comfort of isolation or the unwavering loyalty of a dog, no matter how beautiful.